Well, for more perspective on this development, we'll have a global affairs analyst, Sam Phatey, and he joins me now from Washington to discuss this issue. Good to have you on the news at this time. So, yes, 21 years after the deadliest terror attacks on the United States soil, memories are still fresh to those who loved loved ones in that unfortunate incident. And the United States president, in a wreath-laying ceremony, vowed to root out the terrorist plots in the United States. Now, what do you make of this development?
Well, I think the fight against terror in the United States is taking a different approach. They are going quickly away from putting boots on the ground to more or less, I want to say, allies. They want to use strategic allies in order to fight the war against terror. I mean, we have seen this in places like Syria, where the U.S. didn't put boots on the ground, but they have allied with rebel factions that were trying to fight ISIS. I think it's the best approach right now that the U.S. have, but there are some other serious consequences to that approach. But that aside, the U.S. may not be putting boots on the ground directly to fight terrorists, but they would be funding groups in order to fight against terrorism across the world. I mean, we are seeing that happening right now in the Middle East, where there are European allies and the United States are actually helping, assisting rebel groups like the SDF to fight terrorists in the region.
And as part of that ongoing fight against terrorists, we understand that this ceremony comes about a month after the United States drone strike killed an Al-Qaeda figure who helped the 911 plot the 911 attacks, who happened to be Ayman al-Zawahiri. Now, what do you make of this, especially as families still seek justice for their loved ones who were killed in that unfortunate incident?
Now, of course, from the death of Osama bin Laden has pretty much incapacitated Al-Qaeda. They try to regroup, but if you have key figures like bin Laden out of the way, Ayman al-Zawahiri out of the way, then the group becomes weaker and weaker. And in fact, we have seen that at the time of the rise of ISIS, how it posed a serious challenge to Al-Qaeda itself. In fact, ISIS is an offspring of Al-Qaeda. And in fact, if you look at ISIS as well, the killing, or the pretty much not the capture, but the killing of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi has actually decapacitated ISIS itself. So that is one approach to take it, where you're trying to cut off the head of the snake. But as geopolitics continue to rise and tensions continue to rise, you have people that can manipulate religious textbooks, and then you have people that are trying to gain political control and power in that part of the world. They are going to use religion in order, as a method or as a way to gain that political power. And so that is going to be one of the biggest challenges that the U.S. is going to face. How do they work with governments, especially in the Middle East, as a way to counter terrorism? So this includes intelligence training, intelligence sharing agreements, which the United States have been doing with countries like Pakistan. However, with the Taliban taking control of Afghanistan, that is going to prove very, very difficult. We must remember the fight against terrorism led to the U.S. going into Afghanistan, and then they kicked out the Taliban government. But of course, that war ended with the Taliban government coming back into power. So we should not expect any kind of agreement or form of diplomacy between the United States and the Taliban government in Afghanistan right now. And even with the Taliban taking over, we are seeing suicide bombings taking place in Kabul and in other provinces like Kandahar. And it's still ongoing, so it's still an existing problem.
And without problem being existed, how far do you think the government in the United States can handle the situation? Let's also bring into mind that this incident has also subjected Muslims, Americans, to years of suspicion and, of course, bigotry. What can be done to change this narrative if the government is to really handle the situation and, of course, portray itself as a liberal and free society?
Well, it's important that you know that the whole 9/11 situation has put Muslims in the United States at a very, very difficult, position. Whether it is coming through the airports or whether it is even at social events, you had Muslims that took off the you had people there who were not very comfortable going into prayer grounds. but it translates into some of the domestic problems that America is facing today. I mean, not just against even the Muslim community, but even against the Jewish community and other minority communities within this country who have people have walked into their prayer places of prayers and then just use guns and open fire at them. So it's an existing problem, not just internationally, but even at a domestic level that has to be taken care of. I believe strongly that part of the strategy that we have to use is there must be the political will and the commitment to ensure that we come up with more progressive and better ways to tackle our political differences rather than the use of religion. I mean, we have seen far-right extremist groups use religion as basis to gain political control. We have seen others use religion as basis to gain more support in order for them to get in office, and it deeply divides nations. And now it's not just dividing nations; it's also dividing people politically within a country like America. I mean, the partisan politics in America is even more polarized than it has ever been. The rift and the division, whether it's about religion or whether it's about ethnicity, is really, really deep. And 9/11 really made that very bad for Muslim communities in this country.
All right, and that's a fine place to leave it. Thank you very much. Sam Phatey, Global Affairs Analyst, we appreciate your insights on the news at 10 tonight.
My pleasure.